I know from speaking this morning to the President of Georgia, Mikhail Saakashvili, who I have known for many years, told him that I know I speak for every American when I say to him, today we are all Georgians.
Supporting Georgia. McCain said, we are Georgians today. With these concerns in mind, I have directed a series of steps to demonstrate our solidarity with the Georgian people. I've also directed Secretary of Defense Bob Gates to begin a humanitarian mission to the people of Georgia headed by the United States military. This mission will be vigorous and ongoing. A USC-17 aircraft with humanitarian supplies is on its way. And in the days ahead, we will use U.S. aircraft as well as naval forces.
It was a moment in Georgian broadcasting reminiscent of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, only there was no fake alien invasion. It was an artificial invasion by Russia. And it's a privately owned TV station very close to the Georgian government. A half-hour special report described as a simulation of what could happen if Russia launched another invasion. And the artificial news report included details like the Georgian president had been killed, that Russian tanks were rolling into Georgia. And according to people we've spoken with here in this community, it triggered fear and panic.
People ran out onto the street. They were yelling and screaming, "What happened? What's going on?" And then we found out this was all a lie.
Within 2 hours of the controversial broadcast, Imedi TV was already issuing an on-air apology in text form, and the spokeswoman for the Georgian president paid an unannounced, unexpected visit to the channel's studios, where she also apologized for any fear or panic that was spread throughout the populace.
Former parliamentary speaker Nino Burjanadze had a starring role in the counterfeit conflict, and she's livid about it.
Saakashvili might bring the country in one new provocation, like he did it in August, which will be ending tragically for the country. And I'm sure that Saakashvili and his regime should respond for everything.
The networks now apologized, but the fallout from Imedi's scandalous pilot current affairs show has already been felt as far as Moscow. Russian officials have already condemned the program as a provocation aimed at escalating tensions between Moscow and Tbilisi.
We have many developments to share with you this hour, including word the city of Gori is apparently falling under Russian control. Russia has also seized a military base in western Georgia. All of this opening up new fronts in the fighting that began when Russia moved in tanks.
Today, when we arrived and news came that Gori was being shelled, I saw my footage. I said, that's not Gori, that's Tsin Valley. Having crawled through the length and the breadth of Tsin Valley, I don't need much to tell from which point this or that footage was recorded. I can swear in front of any tribunal. I can point at this location on the map of the town because I am the cameraman of the Russia channel videotaped there.
The exotic names of Sarajevo, Grozny, Kigali. These names are now synonymous with mass destruction and the horrors of war. But this week, some journalists tried to add another name to the list, Gori.
There have been airstrikes by Russian warplanes, particularly in a town just outside of Tbilisi, the capital, a town called Gori, where officials say an apartment block was hit by Russian bombs carried by Russian warplanes. At least 60 people there were killed, according to the Georgian authorities.
CNN was backed up by the claims of the Georgian government.
I've seen firsthand today with my own eyes how the two Russian jet planes came very low on a marketplace, a very busy marketplace in a small town in the middle of Georgia that had nothing to do with the conflict area. It's far from that conflict area, and deliberately dropped 500 kilograms bombs on civilian population. Well, I happened to be not far from there. I saw it with my own eyes.
But this is Gori today, a ghost town where Stalin's statue ironically towers over the main square. Yes, there is glass on the ground and damaged cars. In a different conflict, the bombing of a marketplace determined how that conflict would end. In the Bosnian War, when Sarajevo market exploded, dozens of people were killed. The pictures shown on television galvanized America into entering the war. This week, claims suggested that the same had happened in Gori.
The talk is about a massive bombing by Russian planes of the civilian infrastructure. In the city of Gori, bombs were dropped on the market and the stadium.
This is the picture of the market of Gori now. Yes, it's empty, but it's certainly not destroyed, and eyewitnesses confirm as much.
Nothing happened. The Russian tanks stayed on the bridge.
They dropped one bomb near here, but not in the marketplace. People were scared and ran away. But today the Russian army is here. There's no fighting.
The Russian army is inside Gori, controlling the two entrances in and out of the city. People say they feel safer because the Russian soldiers protect them from the vandalism of local gangs.
Nothing happened here. We heard that the Russians are coming and people ran away and left everything behind. There was no war in Gori.
The fighting's now moved to a different front, from the ground to the media. Both sides accuse the other, and while it's likely we'll never know exactly what happened here in Gori, one thing is certain: the city is not destroyed, nowhere even close to it. Paula Svea, RT, Gori.
The Georgian president chews over his next move. Is he weaker or stronger than before?
He made statements against the background of the EU flag, throwing out one sensation after another. In Georgia, he interrupted broadcasting of all Russian channels and blocked Russian websites.
Is that the universal pattern of democracy and free society? Why Georgian leadership is so frightened by Russian television and Russian journalists?
Georgian bombing or the killings of civilians in South Ossetia were hardly mentioned at all. Each day, Saakashvili notably reported Georgian troops are out of South Ossetia. Just as regularly, reports on continuing crossfire intensified.
And we continue covering South Ossetian conflict. A day of mourning will be held across Russia on Wednesday to mourn those who lost their lives in the South Ossetia war. Flags will be flown at half-mast throughout the country. During 5 days of violence, tens of thousands have fled to neighboring Russian regions to escape the devastating attacks. Russian peacekeepers have the republic's war-torn capital under control. The city has been left in ruins and some villages nearby razed to the ground. As the noise of shooting and shelling died down in the conflict zone, their place is taken by the crying of desperate victims. Following Georgia's attack on South Ossetia, it's now hard to find a citizen who has not lost a relative in the conflict. With the humanitarian corridor now completely under peacekeepers' control, convoys of refugees continue to stream into Russia's southern regions.
Members of the House Foreign Affairs Committee side with Russia.
The recent fighting in Georgia and in its breakaway provinces was started by Georgia. The Georgians broke the truce, not the Russians. And no amount of talk of provocation and all this other stuff can alter that fact.
We don't need to be in Georgia protecting a pipeline. We're not there for democracy. We're there to protect an oil pipeline, and that to me is tragic.
Governor Sarah Palin warns war may be necessary if Russia invades another country.
In the interview, Palin said if the Republic of Georgia joins NATO and Russia attacks, then the U.S. could very well go to war.
Otherwise, under the NATO treaty, wouldn't we then have to go to war if Russia went into Georgia?
Perhaps so. I mean, that is the agreement when you are a NATO ally, is if another country is attacked, you're going to be expected to be called upon and help.
John McCain said that Americans are supporting Georgia. McCain said, we are Georgians today. Everybody are Georgians today.